I'm on a construction site in the UK building 52 metal frame houses just like that one right beside me. And today, you're not just going to learn every single step that it takes to install a metal frame on a new build. You're also going to understand the costs and how much metal frame costs. And at the end, I'm going to share some confidential information on how long they actually last. It might actually blow your mind. In order to truly appreciate how good a metal frame is, we have to understand every single step that we have to go through to install a metal frame for a new build in the UK. First things first, we have to acquire the metal. So the metal gets developed on a coil. I will show an image for you guys right now in a factory. And then we will pay a supplier to turn that metal coil into prefabricated sheets that will come onto site all ready to be installed. So the first step is the metal coil that's formed, ideally within the UK. Then after it gets formed, it goes to a factory where it gets panelized and turned into literally walls of a house that would then be put on a lorry. Once it gets onto site, then that's when it gets really exciting. So once the ground workers finish the foundation, they hand it over to the steel fixers and then they can start doing their job on it. So first things first, they make sure that there's no low or high points. That's the key thing here. You don't want to build a house when the foundation of the house is basically like ripply and rough and all the rest of it. So you want it to be smooth. So they sand it down. After they sand it down, they mark out where the rooms are going to be, where the panels are going to fit. So you can see the panels have already been brought down to this part of the site and they've already fitted the panels onto the slab. So now the steel fixers will offload the panels and fix it in the right location where they've marked on the yellow lines where the wall is going to be. So that's the first step of installing the steel frame. And as simple as it is, what you see right now is exactly how it goes on in a construction site in the UK. This is quite rare. You can't find this in a lot of places because we are one of the only companies building in a metal frame house. So it's quite exciting, it's quite new, especially in the UK. They just pick it up panel by panel, fix it into the concrete slab, and then fix it into the adjoining walls. So this then will create the outline of the ground floor. Once that is done, if it's a semi-detached house, the steel fixers will then put in the insulation for the party wall. Now we have to make sure as a site manager, we take pictures of this because this is a requirement for Part L, and Part L is all to do with insulation and making sure that we're constructing houses to a good quality. So we've got to take pictures of that. Whilst the scaffolders are putting the scaffolding around the house, the steel fixers inside the plot will then start installing the metal joists going across. So then when the scaffolding's finished, the scaffolders are finished now, the steel fixers can then go on top of the scaffolding and start installing cement board flooring on top of the metal joists. Once this is done, we then are able to start installing the first floor. But before we get onto that, if you are enjoying the video so far, please subscribe because I'm only a small channel and it means so much to me. And also, the bigger the channel gets, the better the videos become. Thank you. All right, I hope you're coming to grasp with how quickly it takes from the steel frame to go from the ground to the first floor. It's really quickly, and this part of the job doesn't slow down either. I'm literally standing on the first floor of this house. I've got scaffolding wrapped all around me, and you can see that the cement board was fixed yesterday. They also used the glue to tighten the gap so there's no water going through the floor, and then also then when the house gets handed over and the house is finished, the acoustic properties that it provides as well. So after they do that, then they can bring the panels onto this part of the first floor, and then they can start fixing them up now. And you can see as they're doing now, they're mapping out where they're going. So we've got 2 panels here, another 2 panels over there, a few panels behind me, you see the ladder. So they're getting all set up already for the first floor of this house, which is it's really exciting. And yeah, the exact same thing that happened for the ground floor happens for the first floor. They get the metal panels lifted up by a telehandler So they get lifted up, say this is the first floor, get lifted up, plonked on top, and then the steel fixers can lift it up panel by panel, screw it into the ground, connect it to each other, and that pretty much forms the metal frame for the house. We then organize the white external glass rock X board to go around, but in terms of the steel frame, that's pretty much it. And as a cost, you're looking at anywhere between 20 to 30 grand, depending on the type of metal you are using for the frame and also how big it is. So now you know every single step that it takes, how easy it is to install a metal frame house in the UK. Let me just go through all of the benefits as well. And at the very end, I'm going to reveal some pretty confidential information you can't find anywhere with the lifespan, the typical lifespan of a timber frame house, a metal frame house, and a masonry frame house, like a blockwork frame house. And we're going to compare the cost and the longevity of each of them. And I'll just leave it up to you guys, because I know a lot of people are a bit concerned, they're a bit worried about metal frame houses. Well, let me prove it to you why they're actually pretty incredible. The first reason why metal frame houses are great is that they're built in a factory. So they're built in these controlled conditions, and they're way more precise and accurate. You build a timber frame house or a masonry frame house, they could be 20 mil out of tolerance. They could be on a slant. They could be built not as precisely, not as compactly, not as strong as a metal frame house can be, because it is developed in a controlled environment, so it's guaranteed that the measurements are absolutely precise, which means that the quality of these builds, the quality of metal frame houses will be much better because they're in tolerance, which means they're way more compact and way stronger as a building, as a house. One thing about the construction industry is that there are a lot of uncontrollables. There's a lot of things outside of your remit of control. There's a lot of things that you just have no say in. One of them being the weather. Now, with a timber frame or with a masonry frame, they can absorb moisture, which means that they can warp, they can shrink, they can expand, they can move. Now, this is one of the reasons why they have a tolerance as to how accurate they can be built within, because you can't control the timber warping or shrinking or damaging or moving because of the material absorbing moisture. But with a metal frame, it doesn't absorb moisture. It doesn't absorb wetness, right? I know that's not a word, I'm sorry. But they absorb this high level of moisture that masonry and especially timber can have, which means that they're more precise being one, but it also means that they just last longer because they don't have the inefficiency or the weakness that those other materials have, which is a great benefit, especially when you're in a country like the UK when it rains a lot of the time. And a lot of people may get confused here because they think about moisture and steel, and then they just think that cold bridging would be a massive problem on metal frame houses. But this is where people are wrong. This is what you don't understand, you see. Metal frame cold bridging happens when, let's say this is a bridge and we have the house inside of the house and we have the outside of the house. Cold bridging is when the cold weather will transfer across and the metal will act as a bridge for the cold weather to go from the outside into the inside. And when the cold weather goes from the outside into the inside using the metal frame as a bridge, hence cold bridging, it creates damp, it creates moisture because the cold weather is hitting the warm weather. That creates moisture, which creates damp, then which creates mold, and that isn't good. So I understand why people are stressed out about cold bridging, but what people don't realize is the standard that we have to follow whilst building houses in the UK, the standard ensures that that doesn't happen. Because I mean, I'll just show you the build-up of our houses in the UK right now. The houses on the construction site that I'm working on, we have insulation on the outside, approximately 150 mil of insulation on the outside, and then we have plus another 100 mil of insulation on the inside. That is a lot of insulation. You could almost call that a passive house, a house that is built with sustainability at the forefront of its construction. Now that's very impressive. So I can almost guarantee you that with metal frame houses, we are not allowed to use a metal frame without having that much insulation. So rest your concerns, because cold bridging will not happen on metal frames. This bad boy here is also fire resistant. A lot of people think with a metal frame, you know, they call it a rabbit box, but what they don't understand is a metal frame, as well as it being very resistant to warping and shrinking and moving, it doesn't do any of that. It's very precise, it's very accurate, it doesn't create air gaps, which means that it's very efficient, which means that air isn't leaking through the house, which means that to a degree it could actually be a passive house quite easily if it had the if the builder and the client wanted that. But it also means they are very acoustic and fire resistant, which is brilliant. Now, time for the moment everyone has been waiting for. What is the longevity and the cost difference between a timber, steel, and masonry house frame? This is going to be interesting. For an average 3-bed, 4-person house in the UK, brickwork usually costs anywhere between £18,000 to £23,000. It's slow to build, heavily weather dependent and labour intensive, but if done correctly, it can last lifetimes. Timber frame typically cost anywhere between 20 to 30 grand for a timber frame house in the UK. It goes up fast, it's lightweight, and it's widely used across the whole of the UK. But timber's main problem, especially in the UK, is moisture absorption, movement, and just long-term overall maintenance issues. Realistically, timber frame houses last around 60 to 130 years, depending on the exposure and detailing of the wall. Now, metal frame. Light gauge steel frame for the same house comes into around, again, 20 to 30 grand. However, it's the fastest system to install, factory made, dimensionally accurate, and incredibly consistent. The big misconception about metal is durability. People hear metal and think problems, but modern steel frames are galvanized, designed to building standards, and tested for long-term performance. 80 to 170 years, depending on the detailing, depending on the design of the wall and the quality of the build. The main risk with the metal frame is its corrosion, but corrosion only comes if it's poorly installed or has the wrong detail attached to the metal frame. The main thing I want you guys to take away is that it isn't one system that's perfect for a house. They all have pros and cons. However, metal frame, I feel like, is gonna be the future of new builds in the UK. Let me know what you feel like below. Thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.